Hello everybody and welcome to the stream of Let's Play Daggerfall. Oh, my mic. There we are. Anyways, last time we went through and started reading our way across Tamriel, because we've just started our readathon, reading up to 30 of 93 books. In this episode we're going to be continuing on our reading, starting with the fragment on Artaeum. I almost didn't stream today because my legs were hurting pretty bad after work. And I thought that we were gonna play D&D soon, so I was like, might as well wait. But no, my brother's dropped a bombshell, and he's not coming until 11 o'clock, so I have time to stream. Anyways, I also have Twizzlers here, in case I get hungry. To keep myself some energy. Oh, hello there. Anyways, with our course due east, we start our next story. After all, this is a reading on our journey forward in a straight line. Somewhat straight line. The fragment on Artaeum, a work explaining some of the history of the Sigil island of Artaeum. The Isle of Artaeum, by Torrance and Elsma. Artaeum is the third largest island in the Somerset archipelago, located south of the Morduan village of Potanza, and west of the mainland village of Runkabe, or Runkabe. It's best known for being the home of the Sigil Order, perhaps the oldest monastic group in Tamriel. The earliest written record of the Sigil is the 20th year of the First Era, which tells the tale of the author, renowned Breton sage Vornet, traveling to the Isle of Artaeum to meet with the right master of the Sigil. Actius. If it was an L, it'd be Lachesis or Lachesis, but it's Iaxis. Or Iaxis? I mean, you could just look up the pronunciation. Oh, apparently it's actually a character you meet in ESO. Even then, the Sigils were consulars of kings and proponents of the Elder Way, taught to them by the original people of Tamriel. The Elder Way is a philosophy of meditation and study, said to bind the forces of nature into the origin of individual will. It differs from Magicka in origin, but the facts are much the same. That being said, as perhaps more than coincidence, the Isle of Artaeum literally vanished from the shores of Somerset at the beginning of the Second Era, but at the same time as the founding of the Mages Guild of Tamriel. Various historians and scholars have published theories about this, but perhaps none but Iaxis in his own could shed light on this. 500 years passed and the Artaeum returned. The Sigils on the Isle consisted of persons, mostly elves, who disappeared and were presumed dead over the Second Era. They could not, or would not, offer an explanation for Artaeum's whereabouts. During the time, the fate of Iaxis and the original Council of Artaeum. Or the fate of Iaxis and the original Council of Artaeum. Currently, the Sigils are led by the lore master, Solaris, who is his word. It was enemy Mephiles, and it was Solaris, who has presided over the Council of Artaeum for the past 250 years. The Council's influence in the world's politics is title. The kings of Somerset, particularly those do not have often sought the Sigil for opinion. Cyril V was much influenced by the Council in the early, most glorious part of his reign, before the disastrous attack on the Ark of Ur. It has even been suggested that the fleet of the King Ogrum, or Orgahum, has been Padadea was destroyed by a joint effort of Emperor Antiochus and the Sigil Order. The last four emperors, Uriel VI, Morathatha, Plagueis IV and Uriel VII have been suspicious of the Sigils, even enough to refuse ambassadors for the Isle of Artaeum in the Imperial City. The Isle of Artaeum is difficult to chart geographically. Wow, what? Geographically, I cannot speak today. Wow. Sorry about that. It is said that parts of it exist simultaneously, in multiple dimensions, and continuously shift in either at a random, or by the decree of the Council. Visitors of the island are so rare to be almost unheard of. Anyone desirous of meeting us with the subject may find contacts at Botanza or Runic Bay, as well as many of the kingdoms of Somerset. Were it more accessible, Artaeum would be a favorable destination for travelers. I had been to the isle once, and I still dream of the idyllic orchards and pastures, the still and silent lagoons, the misty woodlands, and the unique city's architecture that seems to be natural but wondrous as the surroundings. But the Sephora Tower in particular I would study, for its ruin from a civilization that predates the High Elves by many hundreds of years, and is still used in certain rites by the subjects. Perhaps one day I might return. Note, the author is currently on the Isle of Artaeum by gracious consent of Master Sargenas of the Council of Artaeum. Oh, he got his wish. Good for him. Next up is Galerion the Mystic, a biography of Galeron, or Galerion, the subject who founded the Mages Guild. Ooh. By Osgrim Kolskreg. During the early bloody years of the Second Era, Vanus Galerion was born under the name of Trechtus, a serf on the estate of a minor nobleman. Lord Generace of Solich on Kur, Trechtus' father and mother were common laborers, but his father had secretly, against the law of Lord Gernace, taught himself and then Trechtus to read. Lord Gernace had been advised that the literate serfs were an abomination of nature and dangerous to themselves and their lords, and had closed all book stalls in Solich on Kur. All booksellers, poets, and leaders were forbidden, except for within Gernace's keep. Nevertheless, a small-scale smuggling operation kept a number of books and scrolls in circulation right under Gernace's nose, of shadow. When Trechtus was 8, the smugglers were found and imprisoned. Some said that Trechtus' mother, an ignorant and religious woman fearful of her husband, was the betrayer of the smugglers, but there were other rumors as well. The trial of the smugglers was non-existent, and the punishment was swift. The body of Trechtus' father kept hanging for weeks during the hottest summer of Solich on Kur had seen in centuries. During the hottest summer that was seen in centuries, sorry. 3 months later, Trechtus ran away from Lord Gernace's estate. He made it as far as Alinor, halfway across Somerset Isle. A band of troubadours found him nearly dead, curled up in a ditch at the side of the road, nursed him back to health, and employed him as an errand boy in return for food and shelter. One of the troubadours, a soothsayer named Heliand, began testing Trechtus' mind and found the boy, though shy to be preternaturally intelligent and sophisticated given his circumstances. Heliand recognized in the boy a commonality, for Heliand had been trained on the Isle of Artaeum as a mystic. When the troupe was performing in the village of Potassa on the far eastern end of the Somerset, Helion took Trechtus, then a boy of 11, to the Isle of Artaeum. The magister of the isle, Iachesis, that's okay, I'm just pronouncing Iachesis from now on, recognized the potential in Trechtus and took him on as a pupil, giving him the name Vanus Galerion. Vanus trained his mind in the Isle of Artaeum as well as his body. Thus, the first Archmagister of the Mages Guild trained. From the Suggestions to the Isle of Artaeum, he received his training. From his childhood of want in injustice, he received his philosophy of sharing knowledge. Good for Galerion. Next up is an overview of the Greywash play, which would showcase the creation of the Harpies by Tydasis, which the poem is the same name, the Greywahe, or the Greywage. On the 12th of Hothfire every year, the people of Hobbenfell Township in the barony of Lane Lynn celebrate Riglametha, Regulametha is the Banthian dialect of the ancient Red God tongue, means grateful offering. In the festival of the graces the gods have had granted the people of Lane Lin over the centuries. Tradition dictates the performance of a number of plays about the great moments of Lane Lin's past, and one of the most popular is the Grewage, which may be translated as the crows who are punished, or the crows who punish. Old Redguard is somewhat vague with the subjective case. The story of Grewage is that, as any Lanlin child will tell you, is one of the wicked sisterhoods of danger worshippers who craft lies, curses, and murders and suicides to hurt the people of Lanlin. Most of all, they use their beauty as a weapon to drive men to mayhem. Their leader, the temptress Noctra, seduces the unnamed Baron of Lanlin and is about to force him to commit suicide to prove his love. When the Baroness arrives, the Baroness tricks Noctra into wearing a beautiful white robe from the Baroness's closet. See how the robe glows with the luminescence of a pearl, but the inside is soft, feathered with down. Noctra puts on a robe, and the trap is sprung. The robe is magical and transforms Noctra into a giant black bird. The Baron, no longer enchanted, slays the great bird and calls it his cook. The Sisterhood has, by this time, taken over Lanelin's castle and turned it into an orgy-filled den of decadence. At the height of their frenzied debauch, the cooks arrive with an enormous roast to keep the energy high. They dig into the delicious prepared meal, and at the crescendo of their gorging, the Baron and the Baroness appear to tell them all that they have devoured their leader, Noctra. The women scream and caw, and suddenly they too are transformed by the magic of the robe into harpies, vicious half-bird creatures. The interesting thing about the Grewage, from a scholarly perspective, is how much the story has changed, and continues to change over the years. In some versions of the story, Noctra is an innocent peasant seamstress, and the Baroness who is the cruel and wicked leader of the Harpies. Noctra prays to Bella and is given a charm to make the magical robe, and she and the Baron live happily ever after once the Harpies feast on the transformed Baroness. During the long reign of the Virgin Baroness of Lane Lin, Viana the Pure, Second Era 120 to Second Era 148, the Baron was portrayed as a willing conspirator of Noctra. The Harpies thus have two birds to dine on. It's unlikely that trying to find the truth in the story is a profitable research. Harpies are indeed a common nuisance in the Iliac Bay, particularly around Lane Lin. They do have their own tongue, and few who have mastered it have not been devoured by their interviewees suggests. The Harpies have no more idea about their origins than we do. In a different vein, one of the best known of the Daedric princes is named Nocturnal, who is often portrayed as a beautiful dark woman holding two crows. It is not difficult etymology trick to derive the name Noctura from Nocturnal, or vice versa. Which actually, as we know, in later games, Noctura is Nocturnal, due to the fact of Noctura being another name in Khajiit, I think, for Nocturnal. Oh, we're almost there outside of the village. We're almost there. Let's see. Okay. Oop. Anyways, the next up on our list is the Healer's Tale, an amusing antidote from a healer from the Temple of Stendarr. Oh boy, they can all... you know what they mean by amusing! In this game, when they mean by amusing, they mean... immature. Pee-pee poo-poo caca. By Anonymous. Note, despite the book says you do not need to be a member of the Temple of Stendarr to receive healing from them. You don't. For over 20 years, I've been a healer at the Temple of Stendarr. As the reader is doubtlessly aware, we are the only temple of the Iliac Bay that offers wound healing and illness curing for both the faithful and the heathen alike. For Stendarr is the god of mercy. I have faced people at their most miserable and most terrified. I have seen brave knights weep and strong peasants scream. I like to think I've watched the mask drops on their faces and seen the people as they truly are. A healer's job, after all, is more than simply binding wounds and stopping the flows of poison disease. We are counselors and comforters for those who have given up on hope. Sometimes it seems like our kind words and sympathies do more for our patients than our spells. I am reminded of a very sick young man who came to the temple, suffering from a variety of maladies. Once I had given him an examination, I told him the results, careful not to alarm him, and I let him decide how he wanted to be told the news. I have some good news and some bad news, my child, I said. I better hear the bad news first, he said. Well, I said, gripping his shoulder in case he should faint, the bad news is, unless I am wrong, you will sicken even more over the next 2 days or two. Unless Stendarr chooses to be merciful to you, you will pass from its existence. I am sorry, my child. The soft the blow was, it stung nonetheless. The boy was, after all, very young. He thought he had his whole life ahead of him. Tears streaming down his face, he asked, "What is the good news?" I smiled. When he came in, did you notice our proselytizer? She said the enchanting voluptuous bond in the antechamber in the foyer. Color returned to the young man's face. He had noticed her indeed. Yes? I'm sleeping with her, I said. If more of the healer's Tamriel consider the patron's feelings, not just the quickest way to heal them up and get them out, we would have a far, far healthier society. I truly believe that. Poo Pito Kaka. Anyways. You disvalue Stendar's name. May Stendar have mercy on you. Anyways, next up is the history of Daggerfall, a relatively unbiased analysis of Daggerfall and Iliac Bay by Adiva Gallowwood, or Gallowwood. There is a sufficient archaeological evidence of modern historians to believe that there has been some variety of human settlement in the city-state of Daggerfall starting at least 1,000 years before recorded history. The first use of the name Daggerfall refers to the area around the current capital, was most properly in the year the 246th year of the First Era, the north half of the bay. In fact, all the current province of High Rock was conquered by invading Nords, who brought a rough sort of civilization with them. One of the first civilized acts the Nords performed was a census, the so-called Book of Life, listed on page 93 of the 933 of the book is entry. North of the highest bluffs, south of the moors, west of the hills, and east of the sea is called Daggerfall. 110 men, 93 women, 13 children under the age of 8, 58 cows, 7 bulls, 63 chickens, 11 cocks, 38 hogs live there. And by the way, cocks is the name of the chicken, of a male chicken, by the way, or rooster. Not what you're thinking of. Nearly 4,000 years after the census was taken, we can see that these 216 people have multiplied heartily. The last census in the year 3rd Era 401 lists the population over 110,000. It is always difficult to find the exact number, but the capital city of Daggerfall certainly outnumbers her rivals, Sentinel and Wayrest. It has been a consistent, if not actually helpful, amusement of the historians to find the origin of the place names. Daggerfall, by tradition, is said to refer to the knife's first chieftain through the former borders of his lands, or how the first chieftain, or to the knife that the chieftain used. But there are other legends that may have equal validity. The Daggerfall entry for the Book of Life actually supports one theory about the reason for Daggerfall's longevity. People were coastal fishermen, but they also found the land itself sufficiently rich in supporting raising livestock. This inclination of the early citizenry towards reinforcing their principal products brought stability to the fickle land. Daggerfall thrived through years under the Skyrim's occupancy. When the Wild Hunt killed King Borgas of Winterhold in First Era 369 of the Northlands engaged in the War of Succession, and Skyrim, greatly weakened, lost her holding in High Rock and Morrowind. The Iliac Bay become importantly strategic. Daggerfall began to expand her military. There were multiple opportunities for her to exercise this army and navy during the Durrani conflicts with the forces of the Alessian Reform. The Alessian Reform. The Durranis were native Bretons, and Bretons are hardly ever given excessive religion. Daggerfall became a minor base of operations for the Durranis and their allies. Raven Durrani, the enchantress whose magic helped secure the final victory over the Alessians in the Glenumbria Wars, was one of the earliest occupants of Castle Daggerfall. Oh, so Durrani is not named after Medora. It's named after, it's named after, well, this person, Raven Durrani. Over the centuries that followed, the Durranis fell into obscurity, but Daggerfall continued her growth. In First Era 609, King Thagor of Daggerfall defeated the army of Glenpoint and became a predominant economic, cultural, and military force in southern High Rock, a position the kingdom has precariously kept ever since. Ironically, it was another successful military exercise 370 years later that ended Daggerfall's monopoly on the Bay's trade. The annihilation of the Orcish capital, Orsinium, by a joint effort of Daggerfall, the Kingdom of Sentinel, and the now extinct Order of Daigana. The scattering of the Orcs in the southeast High Rock made the river route from the bay more accessible. The tiny village of Wayrest grew like a flower that no longer feared the mow. In 20 years, Wayrest made trade profits equal to Daggerfall's. In 40 years, Wayrest was the acknowledged master of the Iliac Bay's trade. In 120 years, Wayrest became the Kingdom of Wayrest. The Kingdom of Sentinel did not exhibit Wayrest's aggrandizement during the First Era. The Redguards were warriors, learning the ways of the merchants and their land was enemy enough to keep the population checked. Indeed, the number of people in the areas of the Iliac Bay was halved once the First Era by the Thracian Plague. Once again, once again by the War of Righteousness, and third time by the invading Akavari. If Daggerfall had not spent its first 1,000 years preparing for battles of the next 1,000 years, it's indeed conceivable that the Iliac Bay today might be Akavarian. The second era, like the later part of the first era, is a tapestry of wars, insurrections, and plagues. Daggerfall, Sentinel, and Wayrest continue to expand and improve their military and economic positions in the Bay. Daggerfall and Wayrest would transpose positions as major trading centers of the Bay, and Daggerfall and Sentinel likewise banded together over which was the superior military power. The Iliac Bay has continued to hold an important position in the imperial government of the Third Era. Rarely allies of the combined armies and positions to the Cameron usurper in the 3rd century, the Third Era, is a notable exception. But not always enemies. Daggerfall, Sentinel, and Wayrest has weathered the storms of contention, plague, famine, and pestilence. The war of Bettany was typical of Iliac Bay warfare. Sincere, frighteningly violent, and peacefully resolved. Okay. Okay, how far are we? Okay, I should probably heal my, oops, frick. That's the wrong spell. Misclick! How far I am? Okay. Also, by the way, currently, Nacho Libre is, currently on, for free, on YouTube! Another good film. Didn't love that film. Anyways. But yeah, that's the history of Daggerfall. And that's one of my nostalgic films, because I actually grew up with that film as a kid with my parents. Anyways, next up are the holidays of the Iliac Bay by Thethai. An overview of Breton and Redguard holidays commonly celebrated in the Iliac Bay region. This is also how you learn in-game how the holidays are formed. Or how the holidays, well, when days are holidays. Anyways. The region of the Iliac Bay has a rich history, and not surprisingly, a number of holidays unique to it because of this history. The region of the Iliac Bay has a rich history, not surprisingly, a number of holidays unique to it because of this history. The Breton and Redguard cultures have many similarities, but just many distinctions. An analysis of the holiday is one way to study the people. As any school child would tell you, the Redguards are a relatively new culture to Tamriel. Their arrival from their homeland is actually well recorded, though it occurred several thousand years ago in the 808th year of the First Era. Hammerfell is a great desert encompassed by almost impassable mountains, unclaimed and unwanted. Many of the holidays extant in modern Hammerfell seem to be direct translations of older Redguard festivals for their migration to Tamriel. The orgiastic seasonal celebrations seem to be unusual in a province with few changes in the weather from month to month. Yet on the 28th of Sun's Dawn, the Redguards of the Banthan Jungle celebrate Duros Now to relieve the wintertide lethargy. On the 1st of mid-year, the people of Abibon Gora celebrate Drig Urzimb. There we are. In honor of the sun, which no normal Redguard worships in this day. Similarly, on the 29th of Sun's Height, the festival of the desert called the Fiery Night seems to almost perverse in such an environment. The Kumu Elezirai on the 11th of last seed in Sentinel has been translated as a harvesting Thanksgiving, though many scholars have suggested that it was once a springtide holiday. Similarly, the Feast of the Tiger in the Bantha of the 14th of last seed was probably once a religious holiday to a tiger god instead of a Thanksgiving. Other old Redguard holidays have either been acknowledged as part of the old culture, or adjusted to fit with the climate of Hammerfell. The Serpent's Dance, for example, of Satakalam is patently an old festival honoring a serpent god of the homeland who evidently did not survive the journey to Hammerfell. The significance of the date, the third of Sun's Dawn, has been lost with the Serpent's Priest. Baranth Do, on the 18th of Evening Star, and Chila of the 24th of the same month are both New Year's festivals. Most likely have been moved to their original dates to correspond to the notion of the year being defined in Tamriel. The Bretons have been in Tamriel since before recorded history. Their holidays have remained almost unchanged since primitive times, though new holidays have been created to replace those which have lost popularity. So Bretons are the, what are they? The natives of, the native humans of Tamriel. Huh. The oldest holiday still observed in High Rock must include Walking Day, the 18th of Morning Star, when the people of Yorth Burrowland wake the spirits of nature after the winter, very nearly in tradition of their more reverent ancestors. Flower Day, held on the 25th of First Seed, is in the smaller villages of High Rock, is most likely just as old or older. The old cult of the flowers, also remembered as Guardtide in Tamarillion Point. On the 1st of Rain's Hand, Daggerfall's Day of the Dead. On the 13th of Rain's Hand suggests the ancestor worship that marked the Breton religion of antiquity. Finally, the ancient goddess of the moons, Secunda, is remembered in the moon's festival in Glenumbra Moors of the 8th of Sun's Dawn, just as the nights begin to grow longer. More recently created holidays that High Rock are those of Tibadetha, Tiber's Day, celebrated every 24th of mid-year in honor of the Alcair's most famous son, Tiber Septim. Likewise, Orthoctide of the 5th of Sun's Dawn is held in honor of the first and most illustrious Baron of the Wind. In quite extreme contrast, Maruk's Day, Maruk's Day, on the 9th of Second Seed, is a solemn holiday, immortalizing the lessons of the equally solemn First Era prophet, Maruk. My favorite of the modern Breton festivals has to be Mad Pelagus, head in the mock honor the most eccentric of the Septim Emperors. Pelagus was, after all, a prince of Wayrest before he became King of Solitude, then the Emperor of Tamriel. The Bretons like to boast that it was his time in High Rock that drove him mad. I mean, with the politics, yeah. Next up on our list of books on Ultrazombie115 Radio is Invocation of Azura by Sigla Parate, or Parate, not Parate, Parate. A work written by a priest of Azura, arguing the superiority of Azura to the other Daedric princes. It is given the dates of the Daedric Prince summoning days, which is how you will find out as well. Note, while the rest of the dates are correct, the summoning day said here on the 3rd of Hearthfire is actually on the 8th. Well, for 300 years I have been a priest of Azura, the Daedric Prince of Moonshadow, Mother of the Rose, Queen of the Night Sky. Every Hoggitham we celebrate on the 21st of First Seed. We summon her for guidance to give us beautiful things to her majesty. Her Majesty. She is a cruel but wise mistress. We do not invoke her on any Hoggitham troubled by thunderstorms, for those nights belong to the Mad One, Sheogorath. Even if they do coincide with Hoggitham, Azura understands our caution. We may summon her on other dates too, and she often responds. The only days we are forbidden to invoke her are those described on one of the other 15 princes, the 1st and 13th of Morningstar, the 2nd and 16th of Sun's Dawn, the 5th and 1st of the First Seed, the 9th of Rain's Hand, the 9th of Second Seed, the 5th of Mid-Year, the 10th of Sun's Height, the 3rd of Hearthfire, the 8th and 13th of Frothfall, the 2nd and 20th of Sun's Dawn, and the 20th of the Evening Star. I don't know who's summoned on the 3rd of Hearthfire, the 2nd of Sun's Dawn, and the 20th of Evening Star, but I'm not certain of those I'm not certain of the others. Or okay, I know, no, not I don't know. I know who's summoned on those days, but I'm not certain of the others. It is enough that Azura has forbidden those dates. Azura's invocation is a very personal one. I have been the priest of 3 other Daedric princes, but Azura values the quality of her worshippers, the truth behind our adoration of her, and the blank, because it's a reference. When I was a dark elven maiden of 16, I joined my grandmother's coven of worshippers of Molag Bal. The schemer prince, blackmail, extortion, and bribery are as much the weapons of the witches of Molag Bal as magic is. Alright, sorry. Let's save anyway. The invocation of Malabal is held on the 20th Evening Star, except in stormy weather. This ceremony is seldom missed, but the Molag Bal often appears to his cultists in mortal guise on other dates. When my grandmother died in an attempt to poison the air of Firewatch, I re-examined my faith in the cult. My brother was a warlock of the cult of Boethia, and from what he told me, the Dark Warrior was closer to my spirit than the treacherous Molag Bal. Boethia is a warrior prince who acts more overtly than any other Daedra. After years of skulking and scheming, it felt good to perform acts to my mistress, which had immediate consequences. Besides, I like that Boethia is a Daedra of the Dark Elves. Our cult would summon her on the days that we called the Gauntlet. The second of Sun's Dawn. Bloody competitors would be held in her honor, and duels and battles would continue until 9 cultists were killed in the hands of other cultists. Boethia cared little for her cultists, but she only cared about our blood. I do think I saw her smile when I accidentally slew my brother in a spar. My horror, I think, greatly pleased her. I left the cult soon after that. Boethia was too impersonal for me, too cold. I wanted a master of greater depth than she. For the next 18 years of my life I worshipped no one. I read and researched. It was an old and profane tome I came across the name of Nocturnal. Nocturnal the Night Mistress. Nocturnal the Unfathomable. As the book prescribed, I called to her on her holy date, the 3rd of Hearthfire. At last I had found the personal mistress I had so long desired. I strove to understand her labyrinthian philosophy, the source of her mysterious pain. Everything about her was dark and shrouded, even the way she spoke, and the way she required of me. It took years for me to understand the simple fact you could never understand Nocturnal. Her mystery was as essential to her as a savagery was to Boethia, or treachery was to Molag Bal. To understand Nocturnal is to negate her, to pull back the curtains in her realm of darkness. As much as I loved her, I recognized the futility of unraveling her enigmas. I turned instead to her sister, Azura. Azura is the only Daedric prince I have ever worshipped who seems to care about her cultists. Molag Bal wanted my mind. Boethia wanted my arms. Nocturnal perhaps my curiosity. Azura wants all of that, and our love. Not our abject slavering, but our honest and genuine love in all its forms. It is important to her that our emotions are engaged, and our love must also be directed inward. If we love her and hate ourselves, she feels our pain. I will have no other mistress. Okay. Which honestly shows more of Azura's kind side than the game shows. Just like, murder this guy for me, please! But after all, she is the only Daedric prince that actually cares about her subjects, in a way. Next up on the list of books to read, give me one time. Take a bite of Twizzler. Next on the books reading time, we have our next book, Ius, or Ius, the Animal God, by Ultrazombie115. 2 humorous legends concerning the god of animals, Ius, or Ius. Note this book references a quirk of Arena City generation which caused the palace entrance in the town of Rockspark in Black Marsh to be blocked. However, the name of the town has been quickly given as Rock Creek. Please do not edit this. The error is intentionally copied from the game. That's interesting. They reference it's like Mia. It's like Maik, the liar. The statues one seen throughout Valenwood and parts of Hammerfell and elsewhere that seem to be of misshapen humanoid carrying a rod are of Ius, the god of animals. The rod he carries has its origins in the tales of the ox and the evil farmer. It seems that one day an evil farmer decided to kill all of his animals and have a big party. As the story unfolds, the animal after animal is killed and prepared for the big meal. Lastly, the farmer comes to the ox and prepares to slit its throat. The ox, not wishing to be anyone's dinner, prayed very vocally to Ius. This came out as a loud moo, of course. Moo! At last, at the very instant, Ius appeared carrying a rather large set of balanced weights. Without explanation, Ius ate the farmer and vanished. Ever since that day, Ius the extremely agitated has always been portrayed as carrying a large set of scales with him. The local Ius worshippers seem to have no idea why and do not seem to care, although the story has been called fanciful at best. I personally know a raccoon who had actually talked to the ox. That is, before the ox became filler for the local inn larder. I do not have any information one way or the other about the validity of the second myth. It is, however, quite traditional. It seems that many, many years ago, before the reign of Uriel VII, before the reign of Sepphoris the Septim II, yes, even before the age of Pelagus Septim III, long may his name be praised, there lived a wombat who was the pet of Lady Grelina, daughter of Lord Prufrock of Rock Creek. Lady Grelina loved her wombat so, and it loved her too, with all the passion and intensity as a marsupial can muster. Unfortunately, it was a time of great sorrow on Rock Creek. A pestilence has come through the town, destroying all the cash crops consisted of raspberry, and a few scraggly old weeds that caused Argonian women to look very attractive to those who partook. Especially when lifts her tail. Anyways. Then a plague had come, inflicting nearly every cobbler with chronic hiccups. Finally, a witch had cursed the townsfolk, so only one word could be uttered, where, precisely. All other businesses, stores, guilds fled from the town, faster than an extremely fast thing. Lady Grelina saw her father despairing whilst the town was suffering, so she brought her wombat in and told him, "Father, my wombat can save us all, for it is sacred to the god Ius, god of animals, For it is sacred to the god of Ius, the god of animals. The only reason I didn't tell you earlier is because I'm an early adolescent going through that period when I don't like to communicate. But please, I ask a wish of my wombat, and Ius will fulfill it, for my wombat loves me." The king thought this was fairly flaky, but he had nothing to lose, so he uttered a modest wish to the wombat. "All I want is for one business to come to Rock Creek that'll never leave, no matter the calamity." I probably should have mentioned before that the king had always been cruel to the wombat. He used to lick it to try and make it stick to walls. So the wombat had Ius create an equipment store in front of the palace gate that would never go away. The royal family ended up going mad and eating one another, and ironically, the wombat was the first to go. But that was why, to this day, there's an equipment store blocking the palace gates of Rock Creek. If you don't believe me, go there and see. That's fun. Referencing a glitch, it's the developers making fun of themselves with Arena. Like about snow and shouting. I read some of Mike's lines earlier this day, and I found out actually he never lies. He's just an otherworldly being who's breaking the flow of time. Oh, what's down there? He's just able to see in non-linear time. But yeah, I wonder if that book was made by Mike, or that story made by Mike. Anyways, we're getting to a really long book soon. I'm gonna warn you. Well, next is the book Jokes. This was right before the big book of King Edward, by Bertha Sunhouse. A ribald look at the many races of Tamriel. Uh-oh. Oh god. Oh god. I don't think I can read this. I don't think I can read this. Oh, frickin'. Ow. Balls. Where are you? Get over here. Ah, you poisoned me. Jerk. Freaking poison me, jerk. But anyways, I don't think I can read this because they're all racist jokes. They're all racist. Oh my god. I can't read this book, I'm sorry. Skipping this. I cannot read that. I'm worried about getting banned. Sorry, we're skipping the book of jokes, because it's all about, like, for instance, one of the jokes, like, what is the only honest, or what else? A dead one. It's like, jeez. Hey, welcome back, Chad. I think I'm skipping one of the books. I'm back to reading. I think I'm skipping the book of jokes, which basically, the best way to explain them, they're all racist jokes, the different species in Tamriel. It's one of those books. At least not as bad as Fool's Ebony. Oh god, Fool's Ebony was atrocious, but anyways. But yeah, I'm not sure if I should read it. I kind of want to, because it's technically fictional. That's the thing. It's fictional. It's not real people, or like it's like along the same thing as Warhammer, or like that, or something like that. But it is, still really bad. Like, but yeah. I'm gonna talk to you guys. You guys want me to read it? Jump around that mountain. But yeah, we're doing the same thing as last time, reading books. That was sailing. Read the book, Benoit. Okay. Alright. Here we go. Please don't cancel me for this. Please. A ribald book of the many races of Tamriel. How is your wife? asked Xanadler. She's in bed with Lauringitis, replied Herolith. Is that Argonian bastard back in town again? I keep seeing spots from my eyes. Have you seen a healer? No, just spots. Vagnorian Yolgan was set up on by a gang of thieves. He fought them furiously, but in the end, they beat him into the semi-consciousness. They searched his pockets and discovered he only had 3 gold on him. Do you mean to tell us you fought us like a mad loot for 3 lots of gold pieces near one thief? No, answered Yolgan. I was afraid you were after the 400 gold pieces in my boot. Oh, currently, if you're wondering what we're doing currently, we are quite literally reading every book in Daggerfall off my phone while I'm walking in a straight line. Pexleptic. We are currently on the Book of Jokes, which is literally, the equivalent of squirrel jokes for SpongeBob. What the dog doing? Anyways. Alright, let's keep going. So. During the War of Bettany, the Bretons in the Isle of Craghold were besieged for several days. After the island liberated, Lord Bidwell found the ruins of the castle where the crowd of survivors were hidden away in the dark. It was going to be a difficult job freeing them, as part of the roof collapse trapping them all in. Bidwell stuck his head in the only opening and shouted to the Bretons below, "Are they expecting mothers down there?" "It's hard to say, your lordship," said a young woman. "We've only been down here for a few days." Okay. I don't get it. An elderly Breton met with a contemporary at his guild meeting. "Harryston, old man, I wanted to express my sympathy. I hear that you buried your wife last week." "Had to, old boy," replied Harryston. "Dead, you know." What are these jokes are not funny. Anyways. "Why was the Sentinel army so useless during the War of Bettany? The cannons were so heavy, so all 3 garbage scows sunk." "What does a new Sentinel private learn during combat?" "How to retreat." "What is the thinnest book in the world?" "Redguard Heroes of the War of Bettany." I'm guessing this person really hated the freaking Sentinel. He really did not like Sentinel. A dark elf man killed his wife after catching her making love with another man. When the magistrate asked him why he killed her instead of her lover, the man replied, "I consider it better to kill one woman with a different man every week." Okay. A dark elf woman being shown around Daggerfall. When she was shown the mystic castle Daggerfall, she smiled sweetly to her guild and whispered, "It reminds me of sex." "That's odd," said her guild. "Why does your castle Daggerfall remind you of sex?" Their dark elf replied, "Everything does." What? I get it. I don't get it. It's not funny. Yelitha told Vathisa that she was having a dinner with a dark elf named Morleth that night. "I hear he's an animal," said Vasa. "She'll rip her dress right off." "Thank you for telling me," said Yelitha. "I'll be sure to wear an old dress." Okay. "How do I celebrate sailors in the Khajiit Navy?" "With hammers and tongs." "Your orchard is sentimental value to me," said Moshad the Khajiit to his friend Hasilid. "Under the tree, for example, is where I first made love. In that tree is there where my mother stood watching us." "She watched you while you made love to her daughter?" said Hasilid. It's clearly impressed. "She didn't say anything." Didn't she say anything?" The answer, meow. "What do you call a wood elf who doesn't lie or cheat or steal?" "A dead wood elf." Okay, these jokes are just kind of interesting. Alright, that's the end of that book. Now begins probably the longest book series in the entire game, the Tale of King Edward, in his 12 parts. By Anonymous from the A300. Oh my god. Anyways. Excuse me. Departure from Daggerfall. Long, long ago, when the world was in springtime, before the Red Guards came and the glorious Septim Empire was formed, but after goblins had driven the dwarves out of Hammerfell, a son, Edward, was born to King Corsair of the First of Daggerfall and his queen, Alira of Wayrest. The young boy lay drowsing in a palace orchard, high on a breezy hill overlooking the deep blue bay of Daggerfall. The constant autumn fog of Daggerfall had blown for the knots of the sky. It was an endless sea of blue. Moments like this were rare for young Prince Edward. This afternoon was the result of days of scheming, for he craved solitude as the other nobles he knew craved companionship. For now his tutor believed him engaged in extra arms practice, the master of arms believed him to be chasing deer with a huntsman, who thought he was studying Elvish. His father had no idea where he was, and didn't care, being occupied with his young wife and their sons, and other pleasures of noble life. At the plop of an apple barely missing his head, he opened his pale green eyes, and there was a sweet rotten smell in his nostrils. He sighed, and stared up into the blue. Why should things fall down instead of up? If you stared at the sky long enough, you could feel if you were falling into it. His eyes glazed and the pupils grew huge as the dark-green irises dilate. He was weightless, drifting. Another apple fell, grazing his ear, and he thudded to the earth, crying as his rump struck, and then his head. A silvery laugh sounded. Edward sat up abruptly and stared around, his jaw hanging slack. Two mounted men stood 10 feet away, still as they were carved into stone, regarding him intently. Princes are not easily intimidated, not even the gentle Storytime. But Edward had never seen or imagined anything like this pair. One had golden skin and eyes and was clad in white cloth trimmed with gold and rode, and Edward blinked. It was still there. A unicorn? Dun-dun-dun. Beside the unicorn was a golden dragon, wings neatly folded, and in his back was a man clad in dark chainmail and a long sword at his side. He was barehanded. He was bareheaded. His eyes glowed red in the dark in his dark face, and pointed ears. Your elves! What? He's a clever child, the dark elf's voice was sardonic. He spoke perfect Bredick. Edward noticed his mind still working, though something seemed to have gone wrong with the rest of him. So it would seem. He did that mostly himself, remarkable for an untrained child. I merely helped him to concentrate. The high elf spoke Bredick, but hesitantly, with a slight singing accent. Edward's tutor said the elves were incapable of human speech. Edward's gaze shifted rapidly over the four beings in front of him. Unable to find a comfortable resting place, he hoped briefly, fervently that he was dreaming. His mind seized with questions and demands. Then quite suddenly, his tongue came unstuck. But I wasn't communicating at all! My masters all say I'm incapable! Edward clamped his jaw down hard, suddenly realizing that it might be unwise to argue with beings such as these. But the golden elf smiled broadly, showing perfect white teeth. Exactly! He radiated such warm approval that Odorfiddle's skin tingled pleasantly. It was a feeling that he had only known with his long-gone mother, but the other elf's face was expressionless. The red eyes bored to Edward as they could pierce his soul. Moralen, you're Moralen, the Witch King! He jumped to his feet and faced the dark elf. You stole my mother! My father will kill you! Am I? I did. Will he? Shall we call him and find out? The dark elf straightened up, and his eyes glowed deeper. A tiny puff of steam escaped the dragon's nostrils. A glowing aura appeared around his companion. Edward knew he wasn't going to call the guard. Why should they be slaughtered? These two look capable of anything. Quite quickly. Give me one. I lost everything. Quite suddenly, he was no longer afraid. If they were here to hurt him, they would have done it by now, but a feeling of impotent rage remained. They'd taken his mother, and now... Why are you here? He demanded. Edward, will you come with us? Edward, will you come with us? The high elf spoke. Hearing him, it was like hearing a sharp, as cool as breeze, warm as fireside. The boy stood very still. He wanted very much to say yes, to his own amusement. He wanted to ask if he would see his mother, but instead, my father, he croaked. We'll miss him. We'll miss you, no doubt. The irony was back in Moralin's voice, a voice that makes Edward think of icicles sparkling and dripping in winter sun. But there was a sort of hunger in his glowing eyes, a longing. His father would miss him, and he knew it. Shame ran through the boy, but he looked up at the broad-shouldered elf defiantly. "Are you my father?" Edward had meant this question to match the elf's sarcasm, but his hand crept to his ear as if of itself. He wasn't anything like his short-tempered, hearty, red-haired father, and Rowan often said he had an elfin look. There was a hearty silence, and Edward sensed that Morlund was taking the question at face value, but that truth had nothing to do with what Morlund would say next. He would give the expectant answer. Still, no. It came reluctantly. He might be lying, of course, but Edward felt a deep wave of relief. Does my mother have other sons? Suddenly, Edward knew she did not, and that question would hurt the Dark Elf, and was glad. Your mother might be dead for, or care, it seems. The Dark Elf's narrow nostrils twitched to the stank, and the lines around his mouth deepened. She was not dead. Edward would have known. The bitter injustice of Morland's contempt stung. Did she send you to me? Do you take me for an errand boy? He snapped, and spoke to his companion. Let us take him now, and be gone. We may discuss it at leisure. The Golden Elf held up his hand. Patience, my cousin. And to Edward, well, youngling, will you come? Dark Elf tales told of human children kidnapped by elves who hungered for young humans. I don't know your name, Edward temporalized. Do you love your life here so much? Edward looked at the palace in the distance, the banners flowing lazily above, the town below, the sparkling bay, the distant mountains. I love Daggerfall. Ah, and you shall return to hold it, Prince Edward. I, Eric Harad Egan, the Archmagister, swear to you. Morland swung around, protesting sharply in Elvish. The dragon spat a bit of flame, but the unicorn did not move. Its golden eyes regarded Edward steadily. Unicorns do not abide by any sort of falsity. The words floated through his mind as his mother's voice. Eric Harad Egon, the Archmagister, I will come with you. You must ride with Morland. The Lord Akatosh consented to this necessity. The elf made a sweeping gesture to the dragon. He wasn't much fit to touch a unicorn, of course. Very well, then. I don't suppose I could bring my dog. Where was he? Shag was always with him, asleep in the grass. Sorry. Where was he? Shag was always with him, asleep in the grass. Shag was the ever-alert. Edward knelt to touch him. A heated discussion in Elvish ensued, during which the dragon scorched the grass. Morland swung down and picked Shag up, with distaste. Very well, then, but I warn you that Akatosh is at the limit of his patience. Mount, then. Lord Akatosh, I most deeply oblige your indulgence, if I ever may repay it. You will, Morland interrupted. He seized Edward by the belt and tossed him up into the dragon. Edward settled himself between the dragon's neck and wings, and the sleeping Shag was draped limply in front of him. There wasn't room for it, Edward began, and jerked in astonishment that the dragon shifted beneath him and grew larger. Much, much larger. Morland vaulted up behind with a precision leap for one in armor. The unicorn jumped the 9-foot wall, clearing it neatly. The dragon's great wings stretched. He crouched, then leapt. And then leapt into the air. His rider swayed wildly. The Dark Elf muttered something Edward couldn't understand in Elvish, but they steadied. The wings beat strongly, and the dragon circled low over the keep, gaining altitude slowly. People were running about now, shouting and pointing. Edward saw his old nurse and waved and shouted, Goodbye! Goodbye! I'll be back sometime! Arrows flew through the air as the bowman shot, while the nurses screamed and clutched at the arms of those nearest. King Crosser ran naked into the battlements, screaming and waving his fists. Child of a demon, come back and I'll thrash you within an inch of your worthless life! Morland, come down and fight like the man you aren't! Morland's loud laughter rang as the temple bells. Cascading over the keep, he shouted, Be glad I don't, little king of the small cock! The dragon circled almost lazily and let out a huge gout of flame. Arrows clinked harmlessly off his golden scales. I'm off to see my mother! I'm off to see my mother! Edward screamed down, noting the upturned faces of his stepmother and her red-haired sons. Rowan had a fur-trimmed robe clutched around her, but though her long hair flowed wildly, 4 pairs of eyes fastened on him, not Morland, glittering with fury and hatred. Edward stopped waving and clutched Shag tightly with both hands. Morland's mail-clad arm was securely about his waist. Edward slumped against him, feeling quite safe for the first time in a very long while. The bowmen had stopped shooting. Most of them were looking at the royal family. The king danced with rage. The great dragon's wings beat harder now, and they headed south, over the water. Aren't we going to Ebonheart? The boy twisted round and looked up at Morland. Your mother waits you at first hold in Somerset, little prince. Querul, why did you wait so long to fetch me? Querulous child, do you think dragons and unicorns do the bidding of elves or men? Your mother came to me in full writing, but she could not bring you. You are too closely guarded by your father's men. Would you have us lay waste your land to take you by force? She thought you would be safe and cared for, and she was desperate. No, this was the dragon's plan. All the astonishing events of the afternoon was the most surprising. The notion that a dragon would take interest in him, but not even his own family did. But willingly, the elf said, full willing. You are folks of larger events, youngling. Your task is to prepare yourself to be a king as such as your people has never known. Our task is to aid you. Sleep now. Waves of sleep assaulted Edward's mind, one after the other. But he meant to ask Morland about his mother, but the last wave was too big. It crashed right over him, and he slipped into the dark fire-shot dreams. Probably used a fatigue spell on him. And that's the end of King Edward I. I'm actually very interested in King Edward's story. He seems like a very interesting character. To me, myself. Also, let's check. Oh! We made it to the next area! We made it to Hessen Hills! Ha ha ha! We finally made it out of Glen Point. And we're gonna head into Shaldgora soon. But yeah. I do like to check when we're on the maps, because it's fun. But yeah, next up on our list is the King Edward, the Part 2. Edward woke to a red sky. The sun was just peeking over the western mountains. They were nearing the glittering tower, fire flashed from every facet. The dragon veered to fly nearer and shot a long blast of flame. A light flashed several times in the tower top as they dropped suddenly. Edward's stomach felt very peculiar. He sighed and stirred and felt Morland shift so that the right arm now held Edward. He stretched and yawned. Not much longer now. It's several days by horse from the crystal tower to the first hold, but I judge that Akatosh will have us there within an hour. We're not stopping at the tower? Eric! Do not use that name so lightly. We're not stopping at the tower? Eric! Oh, I mixed them up. Oops, sorry. Sorry! We're not stopping at the tower? Eric! Do not use that name so lightly. Not even to me. The Archmagister will not return for days yet. Unicorns are brothers of the wind and travels fast. Even burden. Travels fast, even burden. But not as fast as dragons fly. See the But, oh, yeah. Alright. Not stopping at the tower? Eric! Do not use that name so lightly. Not even to me. The Archmagister will not return for days yet. Unicorns are brothers to the wind and travel as fast, even burdened, but not as fast as dragons fly. You see, the elven homeland is dawned for the backs of a dragon. Count yourself fortunate among men. Edward's gaze roamed the deep green woods and rugged hills. There was no sign of habitation. It's lovely, he said politely, but not as beautiful as High Rock, he added out of loyalty and truth. Are there no towns or villages or farms? The firstborn live nestled deep in the trees, and they do not tear up the earth and plant anew, but take gladly what Ariel offers, and make return. Ah, the green smell of growing things. Indeed, the air was as heady as the wine Edward used to sip from his father's cup before. I'm hungry. I expect so. A bit of shifting in Morland's left hand produced a small leaf-wrapped package. The dusty hand was large and strong, and looked neither human nor animal. Edward stared with revulsion, then took the package gingerly so as to not touch the hand. He felt Morland stiffen as the hand that held Edward relaxed its grasp of it. Edward felt ashamed of his reaction. It was neither kind nor wise to give offense to the circumstances. Morland could quite easily drop him overboard. I need to bathe, but so do you, he said stiffly. Morland was deliberately misinterpreting the reaction. Okay, I need to bathe, but so do you, he said stiffly. Well, yeah. Edward knew. Yes, I am very dirty. Edward bit into the cake, which proved to be much better than it looked. My lady mother used to see me like this. At least she used to be. But perhaps I should bathe first. Oh, I'm hitting a mountain. Give me a moment. Alright, let me head around this mountain before I continue the story. Alright. I expect so. Bit of shifting in Morland's left hand. Oh, yeah. Oh, wait. No. Okay. I think you will not be offered that choice. I don't think you'll be offered that choice. Ah, at last! The dragon spread his wings, it set a huge gout of flame soaring skyward, then dropped to the earth in a large clearing. The landing was abrupt and jarring. Elves appeared quite suddenly, and arms reached up to take him, and Shag, who woke at last, ran frantically in circles, then sat pantingly at Edward's feet. A tall elf with fiery hair like copper greeted them formally. Greetings, my lord king. Your lady wife awaits you, Prince Edward. Waits you. Prince Edward, I welcome you to the land of the firstborn on behalf of its people. May your stay here prove pleasant and productive. Morland nodded deferentially. Thank you, my host. My queen has... thank you, my host. My queen has waited long enough. We will go to her now. Morland's hand on his shoulder steered Edward towards the largest tree he had seen. The trunk was hollow. Steps inside led up. Openings gave out onto more steps and bridges along and among the mighty branches. They proceeded along until they reached a large canopied platform, furnished with seats and chests as to their room. A gold-skinned woman smiled at them and waved them in, then left. A tall, slender, pale-skinned, dark-haired human woman paced towards them, her eyes on Edward. Only Edward. Why did you leave us? The cry came deep inside, ringing through him. It stopped her several paces from him. Now her eyes lifted to Morland, who said in a harsher tone than Edward had ever heard from him, "Thou wilt address thy mother with respect, cub!" A glancing blow made his eyes water. Elira crossed quickly to Morland and placed his hands on his chest. "Greeting, my husband. All praise to Nortorgo for bringing you and my son safely to me." Thank. Also the Lord of Dragons, and the bandit, who could not have lifted the boy more neatly himself. The Archmagister had something to do with this as well. Morland's dusky hands came up to hold her bare arms lightly and tenderly. He laughed, looking relaxed and happy, but the hands against his chest formed a barrier as much as a caress. "I am blessed indeed. But it has been long since my son and we've spoken. So we may find words more easily if we speak them alone together. Morland's smile vanished instantly. Are words then a thing which two can find more easily than three? Well, perhaps. At times, wife. But perhaps at times, wife. He turned on his heel and left. The bridge swung and creaked, but his feet made no sound at all. Morland's smile vanished instantly. No. Elira watched after him, but she did not look back. Edward felt again the curious mix of satisfaction and regret that came with giving pain to his enemy. "Edward, my son, come and sit with me." Edward stood where he was. "Madam Mother, I have waited many years and traveled many leagues to have an answer. I will wait no longer, nor will go one step further." "What have you been told?" "That you were treacherously kidnapped by night at the aid of magic, while my father slept, trusting in the honor of his guest." "Your father told you that? In Morland? Said you came full willing. I would hear what you say." "Would you hear why I left your father, or why I did not take you with me, having chosen to go?" Edward paused, thinking. "Madame, I would hear the truth. Therefore, I must give the truth." "What?" "I would hear the truth, and therefore I must give the truth. I would hear why you left me behind. The other, I think I know as much as I can, or would know, unless you wish to tell me more or other. The truth. Truth is not a single thing, existing apart from those who apprehended it. But I will tell you my truth, and perhaps then you may arrive at your truth." Elira walked back to a softly pillowed chair and composed herself. Nearby, a small ruby-colored bird settled on a branch and trilled in accompaniment to her soft voice. "My parents arranged my marriage as is the custom of our homeland. I did not love Corsair, but at the beginning I respected him and tried to be a good wife. He did not care for me, nor did he take care, and so he lost my respect, and I died a little each day, withering like an untended plant. I was happy only with you, but Corsair thought I was making you too soft, womanish, he said. And so, after your third birthday, I was allowed to spend only an hour each day with you. I listened to your cries and sat weeping, without heart for anything. Finally you ceased crying and asked for me, and my heart was left empty. I formed the habit of walking and riding much of the time alone, save for a guard or two. Then Morland came. He wanted to mine for ebony in the Rothgarian Mountains. Oh god, not the Rothgarian Mountains again! The lands he wanted to use as... The lands he wanted to use was part of my dowry. He was willing to train our people in the arts of its use, and even to give them weapons of dark elf making. In return, our people were to aid him in keeping the goblins away, and allowed him to form a colony for his people in High Rock. Corsair had no use to the land, and wanted the weapons very much indeed. There are none better, so we favor the proposal. There are many details to be discussed and arranged, and it fell to me to conduct these negotiations. Corsair despises dark elves, and he was jealous of Morland, who was already famed as the finest fighter in Old Tamriel. But Morland was more than a skilled fighter. He was well-read and interested in everything under the sun. He sang and played as if taught by Geoffrey and Jim Say both.
He was a companion of such that I'd only dreamed of. That and no more, I swear. We both loved to be outside. And our discussions took place while riding and walking, but always accompanied by his men and Courser. When all was arranged, Courser gave a great feast to celebrate the treaty. All of High Rock's nobility came, and many other provinces. At the end, Courser was deep in his cups and let fall an insult that could only be washed out in blood. I had long retired with the other ladies, so I did not know what it was, but I heard enough in private to know that Courser had a store of such to choose from. Morland gave the challenge and gave Courser until noon, that he might recover such wits he had. Then Morland came to me alone in my chamber. He told me what had befallen. Milady, I think I will choose your brother as his champion. I think you'll choose your brother as his champion. In any case, there will be a river of blood between us that will not be crossed in this life or any other. I can live without your love, but I would not have your enmity. Come with me now, as wife or honored guest, as you choose, and you shall serve as blood price instead of your kin, the kith of kin. And there, in the moonlight, in my terror, with my ladies sleeping about me, I knew I loved him. Doubted that I could live without him. And yet, I loved you more. My son, I whispered. I'm actually very interested in King Edward's story, honestly. To be honest. My son, I whispered. I can't... Milady, you must choose. I'm sorry. You see, don't you, Edward? If I stayed, it meant my brother's death, his innocent young blood, or your father's, or possibly of that of the man I loved. Though I counted that most unlikely, Morland's fighting skills alone were supreme, and in an affair of this sort, he would be entitled to call upon magic aid as well. We could take him with us, but Morland shook his head sadly. That I will not do. It would go against my honor to part father and son. Yeah. Mid-story, it's like, my son. the queen mid-sentence. My son falls to the bridge. Ah! Ah! It's like a Princess Bride story. It's like a guy reading to like a group of children the story, and then suddenly the guy's chair breaks in the middle of the reading. You know what I mean? Leaving love alone, I am trained to duty. Leaving love alone, I am trained to duty, Elira said proudly. Should I have robbed you of your father or your loving uncle? And I thought it likely that Courser would, should he survive, would somehow blame me for the affair and use it as an excuse to put me away. I thought... Yeah, Princess Bride is a really good film. The rats of an unusual size. Rolling down the hills, New Montoya, giant, inconceivable. Like, I love that movie. Yeah. Half dead. Oh, I'm out of magicka. Or out of stamina. It's a great film. And if anyone decides to watch this video in the future, because some people like to watch stream archives, I'd say this. If anyone watching this who has not seen Princess Bride, watch it. Great film. Where are you? Die. Oh! I'm using the Maroon's Razor, by the way. That's why it's instant killing enemies. Just checking. Where are we in Glen Point? Okay, we're close to a village.
Leave me alone, assassins. I'm just trying to ride. I'm just trying to ride.
I thought Course would be pleased to have me gone. I knew he wanted the weapons very much. I could trade them for a time with you, I thought. All this passed through my mind while Moreland stood waiting, not looking at me. Lady Mara, help me choose wisely, I prayed. You truly want me as a wife? I could bring you nothing but trouble.
Elira, I would have you as a wife. I would have you to wife, and I want nothing but yourself. He shed his cloak and wrapped it around my body, pulling the bedclothes away.
Ooh. Moreland, wait, is this right? What I do?
Milady, if I thought this wrong, I should not be standing here. Of choices you are given, this one seems to be the most right.
He swung me up in his arms and carried me to his horse. And so I left your father's house, clad only in his cloak and riding before him. And wild joy mixed with my sorrow, so that I may scarce knew how I felt. That is my truth. Edward said quietly, but he parted my mother and me at the end, with great reluctance, and only because the dragon says you and your father were in truth already parted in heart. It is only a matter of more leagues, which provide a measure of safety for you. Moreland insisted that you should freely consent to come. You are as free to return at any time as you wish. Moreland would have just taken me. It was the Archmagister who insisted I must consent. He's not a patient man by nature, and he is anxious to do Courser no harm. Doubtless he felt the discussion would be carried on as well elsewhere. He called him the King of Small Cock, and laughed. Why? Are Daggerfall cockerels smaller than Ebonheart birds? And what does it matter anyway? My father was very angry. I think he would have liked to fight. But it's true he hates me. I knew that, but I didn't want to know, so I pretended not to. I don't suppose Moreland would do that. No. He lied though. He thought about telling me he was my father. I could see it. Elira threw back her head and laughed a pretty rippling laugh. He remembered it from the long ago, and it sent shivers down his back. He must have wanted to claim it very badly, indeed, if he let you see it. He's usually quicker than that. And he does not lie under oath, or to hurt those he loves. He doesn't love me! He doesn't even like me! But I do, my dear son. Edward thought she was going to say he'd grown. Adults always remarked on his growth, even if he's just seen them a week ago. Very strange since he was small for this age. Instead, she said, "You're just as I thought you'd be," with deep maternal satisfaction. And he loves you. But he said he was no one's errand boy, yet you dismissed him as if he were. And he loves you, but he said he was no one's errand boy. He dismissed like you were. Elira's face and neck turned to deep crimson. Nay, though I am reduced to serving man, it seems. Moreland had entered silently, bearing a huge tray of piled high with food.
Give me a stool, boy. You can play page if I can play server. You must be famished, and I thought I'd be best return before my wife gets round to the rest of my faults. Could take her most of the day listing them. She'd shed the mail and bathe and dressed in black jerkin and hose with a silver sash tied around his narrow waist. Oh, he's not reading that. That's a description. He shed the mail and bathed and dressed in fresh black jerkin and hose with silver sash tied around his narrow waist. But the black sword still swung by his side. Myra, help us! You've prepared enough food for a small army, and I've broken my fast! Elira's small hands reached the elf's arm, slid down it caressingly, and then clasped his hand and squeezed it, lifting it to her still hot cheek, brushing it with her lips. Edward looked away quickly, discomforted by the sight of his dusky skin against her fairness. Wow, Edward. Anyways, this is for me, and this is for me, and a bit for the boy. But pray join us, my dear. You've grown thin, pining for me, no doubt.
He wrapped a lock of her dark curly hair around his fingers and tugged at it, grinning, then fell on the food like a swarming wolf, attacking with a small silver weapon instead of eating it with his fingers as humans did. The food was wonderful. Edward ate it until he could eat no more. So apparently, humans in the first era didn't eat with silverware. They just ate. they just ate it like with with reckless abandon with their hands. Actually the best way to explain it is, you ever see Fantastic Mr. Fox? with the apple fritters, I think what they're called. Another great film, by the way, if you haven't seen it. Eavesdropping, he murmured thoughtfully. He'd been mulling over a list of Morven's fault while he ate, and realized too late he'd spoken aloud. By the Xanthar boys, eavesdropping. As he murmured thoughtfully, he'd been mulling over a list of Morven's thought while he ate, and realized too late that he'd spoken aloud. My Xanthar boy, if you humans will shut your privy conversation over the tree, I'd expect you to shut my ears with wool. They ate like the orcs, yeah. Actually, were they orcs at this time in this era? Because they might have been Chimer, right? I've been reading in my Elder Scrolls lore. I mean, probably knows by now. He tapped one of his large pointed ears. Edward hurriedly tried to remember what he'd said, lying. Oh dear, maybe he hadn't heard. So I'm a liar, am I, boy? Virgil, help him. Edward felt he was Virgil, help him. Edward felt like he was drowning. Could the elf read minds? He hoped he wasn't. That wasn't the insult his father had used. I thought that. Okay. Do you want me to wait? Or, do you want to keep going? I'll wait a bit for an answer. And if no answer, I'll probably keep continuing. I'll probably do a recap when you get back. Alright. I thought that you were thinking about it. You did hesitate, Edward gulped as he was making matters worse. Possibly. I was trying to remember Possibly. I was trying to remember. The sardonic tone was back. You don't even like me! Edward burst out. That doesn't seem to stop your true father from claiming you. Moreland, don't! Alira interrupted, but the elf held his hand to quiet her. I'm not so sure! Why do you say that? I don't know. Rowan says things, and I am not like him at all. Everyone remarks on it too, and then stops talking. What things? Speak, boy! About how fond mother was of her brother when they were young. How sad and angry he was when she was carried off. More like a lover, she said, than a brother. She said it very sweetly, but like she means something by it. Something too dirty to say. Other times she talks about how elfin I look, and how quickly after marriage I came. Not as quickly as her first son, though. Moreland leaped up. By the Avenger, I will go back and wring this Vexen's neck. The human... He bit off the insult, but his red eyes flamed rage, and muscles swelled, and his hair stood on end. You do not look half-elven. I never met your mother until 4 years after your conception. Rowan, it seems, cannot decide which lie he wishes to use. But incest? May Kel strike her down if I may not. The tall elf paced furiously about the room, lithe as a Khajiit, hand fondling his sword hilt. The platform swayed and dipped. She's ambitious for her sons at Edward's expense. The question is, how many will believe her? Not enough she was... wait, no, that's his wife. That's Elvira. She's ambitious for her sons at Edward's expense. The question is, how many will believe her? Not enough she was planning to have him killed instead. Elvira's smooth brow wrinkled a bit. I never disliked her, you know, nor she me. She wanted my place, and I was glad enough to let her have it, save for Edward. You want me to be king, so I'll let you have the Ebon mines. Ebon had worked. You want me to be king, so I'll let you have the Ebon mines. Edward had worked out the puzzle. Oh, devil, take the Ebon. Okay, never mind. You want? It's fine. No, okay, that was Moreland. Oh, devil, take the Ebon, which he probably will.
I have a better chance of getting cooperation from Rowan's boys than once your father's dead. They'd have a reason for gratitude and the bargain a good one. Though the chances they could be civil-tongued long enough to sign a contract seem poor, given their parentage.
Then why? You don't even like me!
Mara, help me. Liking a person is a human concept. One day they like you. The next day they don't. On Turnus they're back to liking you again. My own wife does this to me, but it claims they too love me even when she doesn't like me. Except, of course, on the days when she doesn't do either. And talks about joining the Order of Rhyana. Fortunately, it only happens once a year or so. I go hunting until she comes to her senses.
You exaggerate. That only happened once, and well, you know it.
I remember enjoying your recovery period. Maybe it should happen more often.
They grinned at each other. Oh, yeah. I remember enjoying the recovery period. Maybe it should happen more often. That was Moreland. Why do you want me as king? Edward persisted.
I told you, it's Akatosh's motion, and the Archmagisters. I came along for the ride. Ask them.
I shall ask the Archmagister when I see him.
An excellent plan. You'll spend the next few days at the tower before heading north with us.
Only that?
Does the prospect of spending the winter with your mother and me displeases you so much?
No, sir. But I agree to go with Eric. Not you. Eric, not you. Or, Eric, not you. The words hang unsaid between them.
You will in time. A few weeks there now will fit you to begin training in magic. I can teach you spells, but you need hardening. Your body must catch up to your mind. It is the Archmagister's will.
Fighting magic? I want to learn other things. How to call beasts, how to heal and float.
You'll learn that too, I doubt not. And I think a fighter can't heal. But it's the first spell you'll learn. But a king must know how to fight. Alright. You'll learn that too, I doubt not. And I think a fighter can't heal. It's the first spell you'll learn, but a king must know how to fight.
I'm not good at it! Okay, no one's here. Okay. There we are.
Dragon's Teeth, boy! Exactly why you must learn!
If I cannot,
you have courage, and a clear head, and the potential to learn magic. That's more than most people ever have. I can teach you the rest.
Edward's heads whirled in the unaccustomed phrase. I do? I have? You can?
Do I think any of your father's fool court would stand naked before a dragon, a unicorn, the Archmagister, and the champion of Tamriel and demand justice of them? Justice! Faced with such, they might have managed to beg for mercy if they could speak it at all, which is doubtful.
I did that? I did, didn't I? Edward was astonished. He wanted to add that he hadn't known, hadn't thought about it. I think I said it wrong. Basically, he was the one who demanded justice of them.
Ah, you did, and it's a deed that shall be sung from here to Morrowind. I'll compose the ballad myself as soon as I have a nap. I don't sleep as sound as some on dragon backs.
You enchanted me and shag asleep.
And the rest of the castle, they'll be my friends.
Ooh! Can you levitate? Will you show me?
Not so fast! I get the holding spell on us all night to sleep. I get the holding spell on us all at night to keep us on the dragon's back. Until I'm rested, I couldn't light a candle at the end of a match.
Oh, well, I'd still rather be like the Archmagister than be a fighter.
Ha! It'll be the news of the Archmagister that he cannot fight. I hope you'll find some time to show you how to wield a staff. No better weapon for early training, and no better trainer. Now, of the four you saw before you, which would you say could best the others?
Edward's thought carefully for a few minutes. Sir, my judgment is poor indeed, but if you would have me as still my answer, it would seem that the one who claims the title Champion of Tamriel must be the best. Yet, must not the Archmagister be your master in magic? And trained to arms as well, it seems. So what should prevail? Could any mortal stand against a dragon's fires and claws and teeth? And I know not of the unicorn. say that it is fleet and has very sharp horns and hooves as well. So I will guess the unicorn. It had the mildest manner, and since you asked the question, it seems the unlikely answer may be correct.
Well answered, youngling. The unicorn would win easily in any close combat. No mortal or even dragon can move quickly enough to land a blow, and it cannot be burned or touched by any magic or any elemental power. Its hooves are deadly, and a single touch of its horn will kill any enemy, though the horn itself will burn away. The most powerful can regenerate within moments, however.
And of the four, the champion of Terranil will probably be the loser against any of the others, though the title is no idle boast. Morlun is not accustomed to being so outclassed. My manners may have okay. Probably the lowest against any of the others, though the title is no idle boast. Morlun is not accustomed to being so outclassed. My manners may have suffered in the conquest.
My Lord King, I am most deeply in your debt. You have done me a great honor and service. If I can ever repay you, I will. Forgive my brash words and ill manners. I have dwelt among the rude and boorish, and it seems I have no father, unless I may call you so.
The elf held his hands out to the boy, who placed his own in them. Edward's feeling of distaste was quite gone, as if by magic. The thought drifted through his mind, and then he released his hand and clasped Morlun's about the waist. The elf's hand stroked the dark hair and clasped the thin shoulders. I thank you, oh. No. Oh, wait. Humon? I'm back. I just had to help with some things. My foster sisters just got home from their, basically they had to deal with their dad. They just got home and they were crying, so I need to help them. You know, just help them, home. Then he released his hand and clasped Moreland out of the way. Okay.
I thank you, my wife. After only 5 years of marriage, and you presented me with a fine son, not 9 years of age. Remarkable, in fact, magical.
And so ends King Edward II's story. King Edward II, Part 2. Next up is King Edward Part 3, which is where I might have to call it for the night.
For my voice is getting very tired from reading all these books, and especially the voice of Moreland. Voice acting a dark elf is really hard on the throat.
Especially when you do voices like this. It is hard to be too black doom. Which, by the way, puts you on smell in the hospital.
The golden days passed swiftly. Edward spent most of his time in the company of his parents. He saw few other children. None at all lived in their tree. None all lived in the tree. Only their wood elf host and Moreland's 6 companions, an oddly assorted, cheerful lot. Disrespectful, Edward thought. None of the Daggerfall court or servants would dare to have addressed his father as these Moreland and Elira did with their constant raillery. Yeah. But they weren't servants or courtiers, just companions. Only one was a dark elf. There were a Khajiit woman, 2 wood elves, brother and sister, a Nordic man, even bigger than Moreland, and a strange-looking lizard-like man, who spoke with a hissing accent, that Edward could not understand him at all. The Nordman was called Slave of Moreland, or just Slave for short, though Moreland usually called him Mats, or My Slave. Mats tended the group's weapons and gathered wood for the evening fires, but it wasn't unusual for the others to bring wood. Moreland himself often borrowed Matt's axe and fetched and split wood if there was need, or if he just felt like it. They spent much of their time roaming the woods and fields, hunting and gathering produce, in 2s or 3s, and usually Moreland, Elira, and Edward, and Shade went off together. They carried bows for hunting, when Edward asked Moreland to teach him to shoot better. He was told to ask his mother, as she was the better shot, and it was Elira's arrow that brought down a handsome buck, although 2 arrows had struck, and they had quarreled over whose arrow had killed, as they ran towards the buck. "Bah! Or bah!" Moreland exclaimed as he pulled his black-fletched arrow from the hindquarters. "I don't know how I managed to feed myself before I married you." You had the companions. Aye, Mats, Myth, and I started together before we met Beech and Willow. Moreland pulled out his black dagger, Tooth, and began to skin the wild animal, calling Edward to come and watch. "You want to learn about animals, don't you?" Live ones, Edward said with distaste. His dainty mother was ripping the skin away with enthusiasm. "Such make tough eatin'," the dark elf said. "Give me your cloak, I'll make a package for you to carry." "I'm a prince, not a pack horse." "You carry your share or you'll be hungry, prince, this night." The elf had lost his good humor. I don't want any, you can't make me." Moreland stood erect and appeared to think this over. "Can't I?" He taunted. "Edward, please." Edward, please. Elira appealed to him. "Tell me, Lord Prince, how then does one get the meat at one's table and not carry it back? If princes may not carry meat, then certainly kings and queens may not. Or do princes grow out of the inaccuracy when they become kings?" "They have servants." "Servants? What a clever idea. Only a human could think of that. Ants are excellent at carrying, I have noted, although not as the trick of commanding them. Perhaps you can teach me." "Servants! Like Mats here!" Edward shouted. He hated being teased. Mats and the other companions had come up, having heard their shouts over the kill. "Mats, you think I cannot make you carry deer meat, yet I could command Mats to do so?" Moreland stared up at the blonde giant. "Well, one never knows until one tries. Mats, carry the deer." The blonde snatched his head and jaw thoughtfully. "Highness, nothing would please me more. But it is a large deer, and my old wound is troubling my back. Perhaps you kill a smaller one." "Well, Prince, what now?" "You beat him.
At what? I can outrun him. I can outrun him, Mats. If I teach you first, will you carry the deer, Matt? Run him, Mats. If I teach you that oak first, will you carry the deer?
Mats shook his head slowly. You beat him with a stick, Edward yelled.
What promise do you show as a healer, my prince? You will forgive me if I restrain from insulting you until you have further training. It is my judgment that beating with a stick will not improve Matt's back. Of course, I may be in error.
Silk, you carry the deer. Me, my lord? I'm sorry, but I have just remembered that I am a fourth cousin to the fifth house of Bella, Queen of Heaven. My dignity forbids that I carry anything at all. Willow and Beach claimed that a mage had forbidden each of them from carrying any part of an animal while the moon of Joan has risen.
Prince, are you truly certain about this rule? It seems to make life most inconvenient. We could bring the wood to the deer, which will take many hours, and leave us benight here. We could consume the meat raw on the spot, but I own my belly is not empty enough to make that option attractive. Elira, can you help us? How do the High Rock folk get meat to the table?
My lord, when I lived there, it was my firm belief that it appeared by magic. They were servants, but they were an irritating, lazy lot, more troubling than they were worth. Edward, my son, is it possible that this rule applies only in High Rock? I suppose so. Edward carried a share of meat that bent his back, and he did not complain. And so it was settled that the meal that night was a merry one. But for several days, if the companions caught him carrying anything at all, they would inquire anxiously as to whether a High Rock prince might do so. If Mats was not a servant, then why did they call him Moreland's slave? Edward asked one drowsy afternoon.
Well, he is my slave. I paid gold for him. All the myth I had. They came to a man who beating him near Reich Parthkeep. He looked near death. When Myth and I tried to stop the beating, the man said Matt's the runaway slave, and he'd do as he liked with him. So I threw down the gold and told him he could leave. Else I would kill him out of hand.
Shows the latter. I'm just gonna read him in my normal voice, in more of a heroic voice, because my voice is killing me
if I keep going dark elf. If I keep going ghoul.
If I keep going full ghoul, I'm going. Oh yeah, I forgot. The thing's pause. I forgot to unpause it. Oopsie! I forgot to unpause it. Sorry about that, guys. How far are we in here? Oh, we're almost out of here. So I could take it and leave, I also would kill him out of the hand. He chose the latter. So I told Mats to take the gold as his master's heir, and go where he would. He chose to come with us, so he buried the gold with his master, and Mats has been with us ever since. So he killed his, so he freed Mats by killing his owner, and trying to pay the gold, and basically tried to let him go, but Mats wanted to stay. Could he leave if he wanted to? Of course! May I go pick some berries over there? Edward asked, and Moreland nodded. Elira was sleeping curled on her side. Moreland sat next to her, leaning his back against a tree, his hand playing with her long hair curls. His eyes and skin were sensitive to the bright sun. Shade slept stretched in the sun, nearby, his dark fur glistening with silver in the light. Edward wandered over to the bushes and picked bright glowberries, so called because they glowed at night, though right now they were rather dull gray. But they tasted very good. If he ate enough, would he glow at night, he wondered? Or if he smashed them and collected the juice, the bushes caught at him. Collected the juice, the bushes caught at him, and he found a sort of tunnel, through them and trotted along it, wondering where it led. It ended in a smoke clearing for a pile of rocks. There was a hole or something in it. Edward stepped back, making a small noise in his throat. Something heaved and presented a tusky, snarling face and hooves that pawed at the earth. The boy backed away slowly. The beast's head went down. The soldiers heaved as the immense bulk lumbered into a charge. Edward tried to throw himself into the bushes, but there was no room, and then, incredibly, Moreland was in front of him, between him and the beast, and there was a flash and a crash, and the elf seemed to leap backwards. For several feet, landing crouched just in front of Edward's face. The air whistled as his blade seemed to jump out of the sheath of his own accord. There was a sparkle in the air around him and a burnt smell. Silence.
Get out of here, boy! Now!
Edward fled, yelling for his mother, who was running towards the bushes, calling for him. She clasped him to her and began shouting for Moreland instead. There was no answer. Then somehow the elf was there, unharmed, his blades sheathed again, but he was breathing hard. Did you kill it? Are you hurt?
No and no. I was shielded. Barely.
You disturb us so in our den with her litter. Fortunately, she thought she had enough after the first impact. I dare say she is unaccustomed to from finding her enemies still standing afterwards. Why didn't you kill her? Edward demanded, feeling bloodthirsty after his fright. A katana, even the ebony blade, is not a weapon I'd choose against some others. What? A katana, even the ebony blade is not a weapon I'd choose against some others. So, a spear maybe. The longer the better. Besides, we leave her there. There'll be 6 pigs here next year with luck. You made a magic shield, Edward said, wide-eyed.
Aye, bearing the shield, she would have left a few marks even on tough old dark elf.
Edward, it would be gracious to thank your rescuer, his mother prompted. Thank you, Edward said automatically, his mind busy with more questions. How had the elf known of his danger? How did he get secure there so quickly? There's scarcely any need to thank your saving my son's life. Thank Shade. Moreland said, the cat told me there was trouble. Edward knelt and hugged the smug, purring cat. Good Shade, I can always count on you. My son, our son? The words rang proudly out at the least excuse. Edward puzzled over this for a while. It wanted an explanation. The one he feared was that Moreland simply didn't know him very well yet, and was prone to give the benefit of the doubt to strangers. Eventually. But in the meantime, he might as well enjoy it. It was nice, having a father that was proud of you, that liked being with you, took you to places, talked to you, listened to you, and most remarkably of all, let you alone when you needed to be. Moreland only really liked being alone when he was composing a ballad. Where are we now? Oh, we're almost into Shalgora region. To Shalgora. That's neat. Edward told Beach and Willow about the mother pig. I ran when he told me to. I ran when he told me to. Would you? Because he said so. I couldn't think of any way to help, but Willow and Beach listened carefully, exchanged glances, and said they'd think about it, the problem. After a up around the evening fire, Willow took a small harp and began to sing about the joys of autumn afternoon, and the berries. Except, give me a moment, I got a message. Just around the evening fire, Willow took up a small okay. So except Moreland set the boy off to pick berries. They got that part wrong. Moreland sat up sharply to look around, but the others had slipped into the darkness, and Willow wasn't looking at him. Myth strolled into firelight, taking mincing steps, picking pantomime berries and eating them noisily. Moreland put his head down and groaned. Myth pantomimed fighting something and skipping along delight. Matt's head and shoulders lurched into the firelight. Myth reached a hand to pat him, then leapt back with a squeal as Matt tried to rip him with a tusk. Huge tusks with a pig nose adorned his face. Myth crouched, hands to his face in exaggerated horror, and Silk, clad in black, leaped between Myth and Matt with a shower of sparks, jerking backwards hose about his knees. Shoeless, it reached for its sword, but Matt's charged and knocked it flying! It spun out of sight. Matt, scrambling on all fours, missed Myth, but tore his nose! His hose! Myth scamped around the fire with Matt after him. Silk, sword in one hand, and the other tugging at the hose, chased after Matt, beating him with the sword. Another figure appeared, clad in Alaria's blue gown, with Beach's head sticking out above the long dark wig. Myth cowered behind her skirts. She glared at Matt and he froze! Silk dripped and sprawled behind him. Beach tossed his hair back, patted Myth reassuringly in the head, wet one finger and smoothed an eyebrow, then leisurely picked up his bow and aimed and twanged. Matt leaped backwards, collapsing on top of Silk with a very realistic death rattle. Beach and Myth embrace, ignoring Silk, still flat beneath Matt's. Moreland began laughing when Silk first leaped out. The liar had waited for Beach's appearance, and now tears were running down her cheeks. Moreland was doubled over, pounding his fist against a tree. Ripples and giggles of silvery laughter sounded all around, and showers of gold coins fell into the circle. The companions gathered themselves together and bowed as humans did. Again! Do it again! No! Moreland gasped, still laughing. You came near to killing me, so did. I beg mercy! Oh, what the frick? Come here. Come here, you prick. Come here, you little bastard! Come on, bastard! Nice.
Come here! Giannis, let's go, you're faking fraud!
Anyways. Oh, we made it to the next region, Shalgora!
Next region is the Dania region. If everything goes correctly, we made it through 4 regions of Daggerfall. Now we just have a bit more. Made it through some of the longer regions. Oh. Grab another Grizzly. Another night, gentle persons. Our king has a very long night. We thank you.
Gods, had the entire town seen? Edward stared behind him, but they were all melting away into the darkness. That's not what happened, he yelled. You were a hero! They made fun of you!
Yes, yes, and yes. Especially the last. By Jeffrey himself. That was funny.
They all saw that and you're gonna let them do it again? Edward was scandalized. They had all looked ridiculous.
Let them. It'll be done all over Tamriel for centuries to come. I doubt not, but never again so well.
But it didn't happen like that at all.
It would have if the Sow had been charged again. Ariana's bow would have been far more effective than my poor blade, and she'd have seen Morlund leap like a Khajiit. His fingers smoothed an eyebrow in a gesture typical of a Lyra, and he went off into a long laugh. Aye, she'd have slain the beast with a look if he couldn't find an arrow. Mats, you are more than like a Sow than she like herself. Bigger too, I swear. Myth, you old rogue. Not only would you look so, only you could look so innocent.
But it's not true!
But it's not true! Boy, you think there's only one truth. Was what you saw today. Did you see all the truth, even of what did happen? That you saw here tonight will light up your truth unseen. And if you allow it, you could spend a lifetime reflecting on it and yet not see it whole. Where it goes further and deeper, spreading like ripples in a pool. Beyond us all and out of the deep stillness forever. What happens is only a tiny part of the truth. Maybe the least part, and what you've seen is smaller yet. Edward still thought that a king really ought to have more dignity, but he didn't say so.
Welcome back, Chad.
Basically, what you missed was you missed 2 books. You missed King Edward II and King Edward III. The second book basically is his meeting with Elira and him being accepted and him accepting his new adopted father and his stepfather. And the third part was basically them meeting the rest of his crew of Morland's crew, which is a Nord, two Bretons, an Argonian and Khajiit. Or no, 2 what else? Not two Bretons. 2 what else? And the Nord is basically is kind of like a blood servant. Basically, it was basically technically bought from a slave driver who basically he then killed. Morland then killed, and basically was like, "I swear my life to you." So, yeah. Anyways, we begin in part 4 of 13. Most of the novels are taken up by King Edward. Edward faced his mother defiantly. "I'm not sick, and I'm not a baby. I can stay here by myself. I don't need Myth." There was a dangerous glint in Morland's eyes. Elira's lips thinned. "You will mind him, Edward." "Yes, madame," Edward said sulkily. "Come on, Nat White. By the way, I am going to, by the way, stop doing the dark elf voice for Morland. Because if I keep doing this, I'm going to die. My voice is starting to get really raspy. So, come on, wife. Myth knows how to deal with princes who don't want to take his company. The 3 adults laughed a bit in their entertaining way at a joke he didn't understand. The weather was drizzly, and Edward had the sniffles. His mother had decided that he shouldn't go out, even though they were only going visiting. Morland had taken his side, but threw out his hands and raised his brows at Edward in a helpless gesture when Elira insisted that he stay behind. Myth, who Edward liked the least of the companions, had volunteered to stay with him. Even Sahas would have been better. Myth was scruffy looking, like a stable boy, and cheeky, even for a companion. Edward skulked silently for a little while longer. Myth had fetched a broom and was sweeping the house out, brushing dirt from that room above into the room Edward was in. What on earth was the use of staying in when there really wasn't anything in to stay in? Edward got tired of skulking and fetched a broom and went up to help sweep. Myth, Edward said. Have you been to the Crystal Tower? I have. It's an uncanny place at first, but you'll grow used to it. Myth was applying his broom with energy and whistling. Sweeping was kind of fun here. There weren't any sides to the platform, so all I do was brush the dirt off the dirt and leaves off to the side. You started at the top and you worked your way down. You're quick with the broom, Myth. I haven't half finished my side yet. Will there be others like me? Oh, some children, I think. Most be somewhat older. I should be quick with a broom. My father said had me sweeping out the king's stables when I was about your age. I used to dream and talk too much like you. He beat me for it. So I learned to be quick. Edward swept faster, stirring up dust. Not like that, boy. Watch me. Anyhow, there's no hurry. It's just a habit for me. Morlin served my head on the platter if I touched you. My father. He was a hard man to please. He was a lord. Your father? Edward stared at Myth, but Myth looked so much like other dark elves he'd seen. Not many. Dark elves didn't come to Daggerfall. Geralt had banned them, but he'd seen some on his rare trips to other courts, and there were some in Firsthold besides Morlin and Myth. Did he have red hair? Myth's hair was dark red. Geralt had red hair, and he tended to the stables for Morlin. No wonder Myth looked like a stable boy. But Edward... You know what? But Edward kept his tone polite, with Myth had a sharp tongue, and Edward knew that neither of his parents would be sympathetically complain that Myth had been impertinent. He did have red hair. Mine, maybe I got mine from him, but mostly mixed elf and human children come out dark elf. No, Morlin wasn't a king then, or expected to be. Besides, this was in Blacklight. There I was born. Morlin's brother was king of in Ebonheart in those days. He came to visit our king, and he brought Morlin along to keep him out of trouble, he said. Myth grinned. I grinned when I heard him say that. I saw the boy looking at me out of the tail of his eye, but he wouldn't take notice. Like I was dirt or something worse. His brother tossed me a pouch and told me to go to town to get his knife and mended, jerked his thumb at me, and told me to show him the way. Morlin said he didn't need an escort to find a store and stalked off like princes do. Myth grinned, knowingly at Edward, but the grin wasn't unfriendly. Edward smiled back a bit, and Myth went on. Our king eyeballed me, so I took off after him. Morlin didn't spare me so much as a glance. Went 4 blocks out of his way, down to the wharves, and when I tried to tell him where the store was, he shoved me right off the pier. I could levitate, of course, but he caught me in a big surprise and went with a big splash. Had everyone laughing like jackasses. I got myself out and went straight to the store and waited for him, but not so he could see me. And then when he finally showed up, I lifted the pouch right off of him. He didn't even know that it was gone. So in he goes and tosses the knife on the counter and tells the smith to fix it right away. Fight off, which he does. Only then Morlin can't pay him. Tells the smith that he's the king of Ebonheart's brother. The smith just laughs and says, "And I am the Augmanister." And the smith calls the guard and 3 of them show up. Well, Morlin wasn't what he is now. 3 guards wouldn't have even warm up nowadays. But he was even faster then. He was out there so fast, he nearly knocked me over on the door. He lost the guards pretty quick, and all that army slows him down. I found him crouching in one of those hedge mazes in the park. He was doubled over, out of breath, but I still stood a good ways off when I asked him real nasty if he needed an escort back to the palace. Not that I was planning to go back. I was going to take the money and run and never look back, I tell you, but I had to have the last word. I wasn't born high, but I was born proud. He glared at me for a minute or so, catching his breath, and then just rolled over and started to laugh. That laugh of his, prince or not, I started to like him then. When we finished laughing, more or less, we started talking. I told him I didn't want to go back. Nor dared to. Princes don't get blamed, Prince, I said. Stable boys do. He said that wasn't entirely the case, but he saw my point. Then he said that I was his escort when he... That as I was his escort, then he must obey his brother and come with me. And that his name was Morlin, not Prince. And they've been together ever since or more. Edward smiled politely. You could see why Myth had run away, but not why Morlin had gone with him, unless he was afraid to face his brother about the stolen money. Edward tried to imagine Morlin being afraid to face anyone and failed.
I wish I was brave like you in Moreland. Why, you are brave, and with your courage, you will grow with the rest of you. Are there only high elf boys in the tower? There'll be other sorts too, most likely. A few dark elves, for sure. Die, miss your own kind? Edward shook his head. Human boys don't like me much anyway. No, nor high elf boys. His eyes filled suddenly, and he turned his head away, but Myth's voice was unexpectedly gentle. I thought you wanted to go to the tower. I do, but you'll be lonely. Edward nodded. That's a hard thing to face. Did you go there alone, Myth? No, Moreland did. But he was older than you by a good bit. A grown man, in fact. They didn't take any but high elf students in those days, you know? But Moreland heard of them, and said he wanted to go there. We were together already, and the 7 of us saved from Ilera was already bunched in a fight, and I had a bunch in a fight. Moreland had already gone to that dragon's blade, got that dragon's blade he wears, and the dragon's tooth to go with it. Remind me to tell you about that sometime. And he was a famous fighter already. And the rest of us aren't slackers, but he thought we could be better at the spellcasting, and the tower was the place to learn that. Well, no one goes in the tower without invitation. No one. No one would not even tell you where it was, but they'd tell you where not to go. So he went there, alone. One morning he was gone, and there was a note saying for us to wait for him, so we did, and first told. He was gone for 2 weeks, and he came back to us one night, rowing across the tide. He said they accepted him, but couldn't say anything more about it. He asked me if they wanted to come back with him. They want me. Well, they wanted one dark elf, he said. One more shouldn't bother them too much. So we go there, and bless me if the Archmaster himself didn't meet us at the door and demanded to know the meaning of this. I wanted to turn myself into a rock. I was wishing hard that it was staple dung, and I figured I was about to get my wish soon. But Moreland speaks up real polite, and this is the friend he mentioned that the Archmaster had expressed an interest in his abilities, and naturally, he wanted to see for himself. But the Archmaster was really interested. See, they don't want to wear armor or carry anything but a staff and a dagger. They think it interferes with the spell casting, all that metal. But Moreland could cast pretty well even with chain, and with any one-handed weapon at all. And I could cast wearing leather, and as much as a saber. Though it's an unwieldy weapon, I did like my short sword better. Truth, I didn't think that much of me, but Moreland, he'd camped outside their door, and just when they tried to move him, he just sat there. They threw all the spells they could at him, the troll gods, everything, nothing. He laid the trolls out flat and left them to regenerate. They even tried to beat him with their staves. He'd ward them off with his blade. And my brother's calling me. Be right back. Alright, unfortunately, this will be my last book of the night. Because my brother just got home, and we're going to play D&D Pathfinder soon. By the way, I play a kineticist. If you're wondering what build I go for. Oh, hey, we're in Shelgor. Oh, yeah, we're not in Shelgor. But I play a kineticist, a water kineticist as a Hetty. If you're wondering what build I'm going for. Con, Dex. What are the spells? And the spells inherit a hair. Edward's mouth gaped open. How'd he do that? He asked. He said, well, it was a trick in a way. He picked up something that came natural to Willow. See, Willow is different. Didn't know Willow could cast. Well, she doesn't have any mana ordinarily, but she can absorb it if you cast a spell at her. See, of course it wasn't much use to her, since she had never been able to learn what to do with it once she got it. Couldn't get it back once it was gone. She couldn't practice. Until Moreland got hold of her and trained her well. Well, Moreland had figured out pretty much how Willow did what she did, though it cost Moreland mana to do what came natural to Willow. So Moreland sat there, absorbing everything she threw at him, and burning it off into a big shield. Drove him wild. Yeah. So Willow was a sorcerer. Oh, it's a willow flower. Or it's a person. person. I think it's one of the sisters. Sorry. He said the Archmagister bested him, though. Edward suspected that Myth was making the whole story. Well, so he did. When he finally came, but the rest of them together couldn't do it. And all Moreland wanted was a study with them. We were all a sight. We were a sight, the two of us Dark Elves in our battle gear, amongst all the white and gold. Felt like a fish out of water. But Moreland was interested in what they had to say. And you can bet they hung on every word he said. Not too many words at first, after a fortnight or so. He told me one night to tell the Archmagister that he'd be back in a couple of days, and he'd show up with silk. Of course, he'd been telling them about the Khajiits, and they'd been asking questions. Archmagister is no fool. He stared at Silk, and she purred real loud and rubbed up against him and asked, "How you doing, Archmagister, baby?" The Archmagister kind of pushes Silk away and says in a whisper, "How many more?" "Just two, sir. Just two, sir. What are they?" "Wood elves, sir. Just wood elves. Plain ordinary wood elves. No horns, hooves, or tails." Yeah, because fun fact, wood elves can have horns, hooves, and tails. They don't mention that much in the Elder Scrolls games, but they actually can. "Yes, sir. One of them has the extraordinary ability. The absorbability with some very unusual features. Others just a bard." "Very well, you may bring the one with the absorb. We don't want a bard. They are not true mages." "Well, that's most generous of you, sir, but the bards are brothers, sir, and I swore to her parents that I wouldn't separate them, so it'll just be the three of us." "A brother?" "Aye, a pair of twins. You may bring them both." And so 3 days later, he's back with twins and Saas and a sleigh, and Myth. The Archmagister looks at them and sort of bobs up and down, but he speaks real quiet. "Dark Elf by a pair of twins. You mean 2 sets of twins? Aren't you going to tell me what these... Are you going to tell me that these are twins?" Well, I could see that Moreland was kind of sorry he hadn't thought of trying that, but he said, "No, sir, the twins are Beech and Willow. The Argonian and the Nord are not prospective initiates, they're specimens. For your collection. You don't have any like them, so I thought... You thought? I don't have a dragon, either. Are you going to think to bring me that next?" "Oh, aye, I could. Would you like one?" "Tell me you're not serious." "Well, I couldn't promise, and I wouldn't... It would take quite a long time. A year, maybe, but..." The Archmagister's eyes rolled up towards heaven. "Thank you, Old Mother, I have a year at least to prepare," he whispered. "I don't think Mats and Saas should have been made specimens. They're people, even if there aren't elves. Oh, they made Saas an initiative once they found out she had some interesting heal spells, but Mats? Mats never minds anything. He hasn't a bit of magic. He couldn't be an initiate. Anyway, he'd have hated it. He spent his time gaming with the guards, and when he wasn't being studied. Seems to have some interesting magic resistances. Anyways, since then, the initiates aren't just high elves, and they don't all follow the mage way. I shall be just like the Archmagister." "Oh, aye, exactly." Moreland's voice sounded slightly behind him. "I'll cut the ears off a donkey for thee, and dye thy skin with saffron. Bleach thy hair white, and stretch thee a foot." Moreland swung him high. "Art well, son, I told thee so. Alira, he's not it at all. Good, because the Archmagister has returned. We go to the tower tomorrow." We was just Moreland and Edward. Alira caught Edward's coal, and they took some pleasure in insisting she remain in bed. Moreland rowed with them across the river in a small boat, and they walked for most of the day, resting a bit at midday. It was the evening when they reached the tower, and the setting sun was glinting off of it. Even the sea far below looked red. There was a hush over the countryside. "It's tall, isn't it?" Edward paused to look. "Towers generally are." Did you really?" Edward broke off, questions staring in that fashion to not draw satisfactory answers to the elf. "Has Myth been telling you these tales? Has he had 10 years to polish that one?" Dr. Nump listed the tower. "He told me how you met, too." I thought he would. "I don't understand why you went off with him. He was a thief, and you were a stable boy. And you were a prince." "You have named 3 excellent reasons, Prince. You never give me serious answers. A serious charge. Very well, then. I saw myself through Myth's eyes and disliked what I saw. A coward's bully and a coward. Fit only to be neither boy, nor man, nor prince. Why did you run off, Prince?" Edward hung his head mutely. "Nay." "Why did you run off, Prince?" "Nay. I did not require answers. Come. It grows late." Moreland reached out. Moreland reached out his hand for Edward's, but Edward shook him off. If Moreland was a coward, what did that make Edward? He looked at the tower door, and Moreland had demanded and won entrance, though Ole would shut him out. Edward could never do anything like that, but at least he could walk on his own as an invited guest. Alright. And that will be the end for this episode. Sadly. I need to go play Pathfinder with my brothers. So I'll probably see you again tomorrow. This has been Ultrazombie115, and Ultrazombie115 Radio, signing off. Hope you all have a great night. Peace.